welcome to another fun-filled Friday edition of Second City Sports. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Kim McGee, which is she. I am Sydney Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80, that's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Kim McGee on the Twitter, X, and again, the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And please subscribe to our podcast at WARR Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including that iHeartRadio app. And make sure you give WARR Media a follow on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at WARR Media. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinions during our 2-hour extravaganza we call it Sports Talk Radio Show, you can always hit us up in the comment section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. But you decide to troll and don't do something dumb, silly, or stupid, even though it's a long 3-day Labor Day weekend. I've given Lakina full power to give you fools to be able to be a boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, we must remind you, you can also catch Sports Zone Chicago now available on Roku TV. That's right, so celebrate with the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, just tap on that sports folder and download that Sports Zone Chicago app. If you don't have a Roku television, any handheld device you have is laying around, your iPhone, iPad, iTouch, your PC, or your Chromebook like I'm using right now, just hit up the Google Play Store and download that Roku TV app and access Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue. So no more excuses. Celebrate with the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. 24 hours a day. Yeah, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Live and on demand.
Anytime, anywhere.
And you know we will provide.
I will try to provide with you. Let's kick off this long holiday weekend. We got a busy show coming up. We're going to have our buddy David Droegemeier, co-host of Locked On Chargers. He's back to preview his Chargers again, also the AFC West. Also, we got another good buddy, Saul Rodriguez from WARR Media, to talk baseball nationally. As you know, we're in September. The pennant chases are going on. And of course, we got our girl Manika from KXRB back with us. We'll catch up with her. On our travels, and also to some of the top, some of the sports topics, both locally and nationally. But we're gonna get to it and start talking some baseball. We'll start with the Sox first. Of course, you guys saw the presser yesterday with Chris Getz. Not a big surprise, but he was officially named baseball senior vice president of baseball operations for the Sox. As you saw his quote there, this opportunity that I do not take lightly, and there's a lot of work to do, and I'm not naive to the expectations that things need to change, but there were some things that kind of made me think, okay, he said there was no untouchables, but yet Pedro Grifol is going to be back next year. Then you saw the farm system he did, just wasn't, it's kind of middle of the road at best. So, he's already lying to the people. So I'm already like, look, I honestly, I'm kind of over it at this point. Here are a couple of quotes from his presser.
I am not naive to the expectation that things need to change. To that, I will say, the fans deserve different. I am different. We will be different. From this day forward, our organization will do whatever is necessary to be better in 2024 and beyond. It starts with a strong foundation. We will assess international, amateur, and pro scouting. We will look at player development, sports science, and medical departments, all while continuing to integrate analytics into every process that we have. With my understanding of the ins and outs of this organization, I plan to empower the talent that already exists, quickly fill the gaps with outside hires, and bring innovation, creativity, and energy in our pursuit of excellence.
While Lakina's playing her sad violin, I'll go ahead and insert my thoughts here. I really didn't learn too much from that press conference on Thursday, Lakina, because it's the same rhetoric that we've been hearing from the White Sox organization for years. Now, I'm wishing him the best because he's general managing my favorite team. But the White Sox have a long road ahead of them, like you said. And to say there are no untouchables on this team, Lakina, I think he's right. I think in instance, but unless you have a drop your jaw to the floor, no can turn your back on deal for Luis Robert Jr. He's going to be on the ball club next year. Same thing to a lesser extent with Dylan Cease, but everybody else is expendable. If he means that, then I agree with him. But you have to start over with the minor league system. I know that Rick Hahn put some names in place via the trades. He did at the trade deadline. But you got to give some fans some hope. You got to show them and be committed that these moves will actually work. Now, what moves that Chris Getz is going to make, I don't know, but we'll see what happens. But there's going to be a long road ahead for the Sox. And did you find it ironic, looking that Jerry Reinsdorf spoke first? I know he spoke about the shooting that took place around this time last week. We won't get into that, but you notice that over the last 30 years, he doesn't really speak to the media as much. I found that ironic that he spoke first before Chris Getz. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it was sort of weird, and like you said, yeah, we really hear him talk about anything. So the fact that he actually talked it pretty extensively, and it's just like, oh God. I mean, you hear some of the tweets from some of our good friends who are White Sox fans. Of course, our buddy Joy Lazowski from Sox 35th. I know that he's trying to stay optimistic, but you see some of the other quotes from other people. Our buddy Herb Lawrence of CHGO. He wasn't very encouraging about all this too, like a few others. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to spend too much time because we'll have time to talk about it after. But I kind of just feel like it's going to be sort of like the same old song and the same thing. It's just going to be a different people running it from the inside. It's just silly. And personally, it's just like, whatever.
Yeah. Shout out to my guy, Vernon Fairley. Nice to see you back, Vernon. Hope you're doing well. He says, new 2024 White Sox campaign. Chris doesn't gets it. That's a good one.
That's funny.
Get a T-shirt running before somebody else does. Just saying.
You should trademark that. I'll say you should trademark that.
Yes.
So, that's actually that might be sort of the thing, but yeah, we'll see. So of course they canceled Sox Fest again this year, so that's probably one of the reasons why. So yeah, I don't want to talk about the Sox anymore. Let's I mean, okay, they face Detroit starting tonight, for a 3-game set. So like whatever, but anyway, but yeah, let's talk some Cubs real quick. As we're talking baseball, local baseball here on Second City Sports. Sports Chicago, Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you, of course. The Cubs hit 2 out of 3 against the Brewers. They were off yesterday. They're playing the Reds as we speak. So they start a big Labor Day series there to try to kind of make sure they get stay in distance. So what do you think about the Cubs' chances in the series against Cincy?
Well, Cincinnati's been one of the best surprising teams in the Major League Baseball this year. Even though they struggled since the All-Star break, they still hanging around the division lead. And they still hanging around the wild card lead. But give the Cubs credit, Lakina. As we said on our show on Monday, they needed to take 2 out of 3 from the Milwaukee Brewers. They did just that. They had a setback on Monday, but they won the last 2 games of the series. In the third game on Wednesday afternoon, they had a couple of mistakes, but they overcame them and won the comeback fashion 3-2 behind Cody Belcher's big bat. As we said before, Lakina, we said it 1,000 times, we'll say 1,000 times more +1. When you get great starting pitcher like the Cubs have, and with the offense that they have, if they average between 4 and 6 or 7 runs a game with this great starting pitching, the Cubs should win the majority of their games. And Justin Steele, he should be your leading candidate for NL Cy Young right now.
Yeah, I think he definitely should. I think he has one of the best ERAs, in this month. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does. I don't think they face each other because I think this game's a makeup game that's going on right now from earlier in the season. So yeah, it's a doubleheader. So, but we'll see. If you're the Cubs, you want to get at least 3 out of 4. I don't think there's anything less than that. Even if it's a split, it would be not good, especially at this point of the season. We'll get to the schedule after we talk with Saul in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it kind of sets up well for the Cubs, I feel like. But I know that they called up a couple of guys. They called up Shane Green and also to Alexander Canero, one of their top prospects. So that should definitely help the arm a little bit. We'll get to that because they missed a couple of chances against some guys on waivers because those was against the Brewers. But you want to try and like I said, get to 3 out of 4. Try to keep pace with the Brewers. They got a pretty tough schedule themselves this weekend, so we'll get to that. But I think if you just to stay with this strike, just take it one game at a time. You can't really go far ahead. You can't score or watch. You can't control what Milwaukee does. So just concentrate on what you can do.
Yes, if you're the Cubs, just keep winning series and you ensure yourself a playoff spot, whether that's the division or the wild card. And right now they're in the middle of a 14-game stretch where they play teams at 500 or above. So, like you said, just keep winning series. Don't look too far ahead. Just focusing on that day's game and focusing on your job. And if you do that, they'll be just fine.
Absolutely. So we're going to take a really quick break. We have our buddy David Droegemeier from Locked On Chargers on standby. We're going to talk, some AFC West with him. Do the Chargers have a shot across challenge in Kansas City? And what about the Broncos? And is Brendan Staley on the hot seat? We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, we'll ask him that and a whole lot more coming up next. Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown, Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. AFC West talk coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports, the first Friday show for the month of September. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid, that's Lakina. over there. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
Yeah, we did a little switcheroo after the break for some reason. You can find me on the Twitter and at Kiosk again on the IG.
We have less than 90 minutes left of this extravaganza. We call it Sports Talk Radio Show. So if you have any questions or comments for us, especially for our next guest, you can always hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you.
All right, sis. So we had him on last year. Of course, we liked we liked him a lot. So we had to bring him back on to talk Chargers, the AFC South. So he is the co-host of Locked On Chargers, a podcast. And you can catch it wherever you get your podcast, wherever Apple, Google Play, whatever, YouTube, all that stuff. So he is the one, the only, the very cool Mr. Dave Droegemeier. How are you, Dave?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Thank you so much for inviting me back on the show. Always a pleasure, and I'm ready to talk some Chargers football. Let's do it.
All right, so I believe you have the first question.
Yes, so I want to ask you about head coach Brandon Staley. Of course, I asked about him to you last year and about his coaching style. You said that the Chargers organization didn't have a problem with that. I'm just paraphrasing here. But I'll ask you about Brandon Staley this year. Lakina teased it before the break, especially after what happened last year in the playoffs in Jacksonville, blowing the second largest lead in NFL playoff history. How hot is that seat this year for Mr. Staley if the Chargers don't make the playoffs, or if they do go back to the playoffs and they happen to lose again in the wild card round, whether it's a blowout or a close game, what have you? How hot will that seat be for Mr. Staley this year in 2023?
Yeah, let me be clear about Brandon Staley here. After last year and how that season ended, and I mean, you have to give him credit first and foremost for even getting that team to the playoffs because of the just amazing amount of injuries that they had to overcome. Not only the quarterback, Justin Herbert, suffering from fractured rib cartilage, also a torn rotator cuff in his left shoulder. His left tackle missed most of the season. His main weapon, Keenan Allen, missed a lot of games. His all-pro center missed quite a few games. And then on defense, no Joey Bosa. No J.C. Jackson. So you had a lot to overcome. So to get to the playoffs in the first place was a feat within itself. But the manner in which they lost is completely unacceptable. And the Chargers know that. He knows that. Everyone in the organization knows that. So if they don't make it to the playoffs this season, he's gone, period. The expectations are a lot higher than just getting there. And it's not about just getting there. It's about getting there and doing damage. The Chargers made moves this offseason to try to keep this nucleus together. They restructured their biggest contracts. And this is it, guys. This is the last time that this team, the way it's currently constructed, is going to be able to go for it. So the expectations are sky high, and they should be.
One of the changes that the Chargers made was bringing on Kellen Moore to be the new OC, and sort of a kind of like bringing sort of like a not really an air raid, but sort of like definitely kind of like the air attack. Austin Eckler, of course, you wonder if he's going to have a lot of touches. Of course, we know about Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, both coming back from injuries, like you said. So, can his offense make a big difference for this Chargers team?
100% yes. And I think the biggest place that he's going to make the biggest impact is in the running game. If you look at the rushing numbers that the Cowboys have done the last 4 seasons, they're in the top half of the league year after year after year. With Tony Pollard, with Zeke Elliott, he was churning out yards. And the Chargers were pretty much dead last as far as efficiency rushing numbers. So yes, the Chargers are going to throw it deep. Justin Herbert is going to attack, but the Chargers, if they're going to be their most effective, they have to be able to run the football. They have to be able to impose their will, and they have to be able to run the ball when the other team is expecting you to run the ball and still have success. That is not what the Chargers were able to do last year. They will hopefully be able to do that this year with more simplified rushing concepts, more understanding, and more bread and butter type of plays that the Chargers can go to and know that they're going to be successful.
Talk about rookie first-round pick wide receiver Quentin Johnson out of TCU. On paper, it looks like he's going to fit in very well with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, with Justin Herbert throwing him the football. What do you expect out of Mr. Johnston in year number 1?
Yeah, very excited about Quentin Johnson. The Chargers definitely have a type of wide receiver that they like. They like big, tall, fast guys that can go get it. That is basically what they like to bring in. So for Quentin, what he's going to do is he's going to help on the underneath. What he did so well in college is force missed tackles and get yards after catch. He forced more than 40 missed tackles throughout his career in college football at TCU. He is dynamic with the ball in his hands. So it's about, throwing it deep. You're going to give him some opportunities there, but you really want to get him opportunities to run in space. So you want to get those drag routes. You want to get those slants. You want to set plays up for him. And I think for Quentin, it's so great because he doesn't have to feel the pressure of coming in right away and being the number one guy. The Chargers can set him up, put him in positions to utilize what he does well, to be successful, get that confidence, and then get him more and more involved in the game plan as he shows that he can handle it and he can perform.
Yeah, let's talk about the defense for a second, Dave, because I really think, like you said, you talked about with Joey Bosa. Of course, we got Eric Kendricks. Khalil Mack, of course, came from that trade to Chicago a couple of years ago during James. Does it feel like this team this defense kind of feels like they have a lot to prove, especially since, with the comeback, against the Jaguars earlier this year in the playoffs? Do you think they kind of have that chip on their shoulder?
100%. Yes, they do. And I think that stems from the head coach, because when Brandon Staley, a defensive head coach, a defensive coordinator, a guy who calls the plays on defense, he authored the number one defense in the NFL when he was with the Rams. And so there were expectations that was going to be brought to the Chargers, and that has not come anywhere close to what he was able to do with the Rams. So the pressure is on him, but also on the players as well, because I think now the first year, you can kind of chalk that up as Staley not really having the type of personnel to properly run the scheme that he runs. Last year, they made a lot of moves to try to rectify that. I think that it took a long time before those players were able to provide the right chemistry and really the understanding on how to execute that defense. I think now, having a full another year in the defense, understanding how things work, I think they are primed and ready to do a lot better. The big problems with them last year was the explosive plays, the 30, 40-yard runs, the 30, 40-yard pass plays. If they're able to just stay connected in run support and limit those explosive plays, this defense immediately looks a lot better, because against the pass, they were one of the top defenses in the NFL. But against the run, they were dead last, giving up over 5.5 yards per carry. So if they correct that, then this Chargers defense is very talented. They have stars at every level, and they can definitely get it done.
We're hanging out with our good friend, co-host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, Mr. David Droegemeier, right here on Second City Sports, the Friday edition right here on Sports on Chicago. Sid Lakina here with you. Let's stay with that Chargers defense, David. Of course, you talk about Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa being the headliners on that defense, and along with Eddie Kendricks as well. I'm looking at the depth chart with Morgan Fox, Austin Johnson, and Sebastian Joseph Day. Who else out of that group, or if you have somebody else in mind, please say so. Who else on that defense needs to step up this year?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's really in the middle. It's next to Eric Kendricks, and that's Kenneth Murray, the other linebacker. Okay. The Chargers drafted Kenneth Murray in the first round, and they traded up to get him. And unfortunately, he has dealt with injuries and just subpar play the first couple of years of his NFL career. He did not get his fifth-year option picked up by the Chargers, and I think that was a wake-up call for Kenneth Murray. I think he understands now that if he wants to stay with the team, he needs to perform. And I think that's a big problem for him. I mean, he's been healthy this offseason. By all accounts, he's looked great. I mean, he's been playing very fast, making tons of plays in training camp. None of the starters have played in the preseason for the Chargers. They did that intentionally. They don't feel like it's necessary to justify anyone going out there and getting hurt before the real games actually start. So Kenneth Murray is the guy I am going to be keeping my eye on. I do feel like Eric Kendricks, a former All-Pro, is a guy that is going to be able to help that development and speed that up. He's going to be a guy that's going to make sure he's in the right place and allow him to use that athleticism that we know he definitely has to be able to star. And I believe Kenneth Murray has it, but we have to go see it on the football field.
It's same thing kind of like with that secondary too. You got J.C. Jackson. Also, we know about Derwin James Jr., of course, Asante Samuel Jr. But that secondary though is definitely going to be the key. Like you said, they gave up a lot of big plays last year. So, what do you think they can do to kind of try to combat that?
Well, the secondary's best friend is a very, very good pass rush, and if Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa are healthy, they are one of the best pass rushing duos in the NFL, bar none. Those two guys are on a Hall of Fame track. If they continue the way they are on and they continue their production, they can definitely get there. So limiting the amount of time that you have to cover, and it's not just those guys, it's about improving the depth behind those guys because, hey, Khalil Mack's on the wrong side of 30. Joey Bosa is recovering from a major injury, although he is, feeling much better and is a lot healthier right now. You have to plan for the inevitability that someone is going to get hurt. Hopefully it's not them, but the Chargers did that. They drafted Tuli Tuipulotu in the second round out of USC, who was one of the top sack artists in all of college football last year. And not just that, but was very, very sturdy against the run as well. So I like the pass rush room for the Chargers. I like the depth that they were able to accumulate. And I feel like if they're able to stay healthy and get after it, then they're going to make the life of the secondary much easier and also provide a lot more opportunities for turnovers, which is another spot the Chargers did not do well enough last year.
Of course, one of the Achilles heels that's been hurting the Chargers franchise over the years, as you well know, David, has been their special teams. It looks like they made a major overhaul. Of course, that you have new place kicker, Cameron Dicker. No, I did not swear. And, of course, you have kick returner Darius Davis, along with punter J.K. Scott. What do you expect out of this Chargers special teams this year?
Yeah, and I got to give a shout out to the Chargers special teams coach, Ryan Ficken, who completely overhauled this Chargers special teams unit from the year before being one of the worst units in the league to last season being one of the best units in the league. So all credit to him. And I think it really stems from the Chargers actually investing resources specifically to improve special teams. They go out and they sign an all-pro long snapper in Josh Harris. They get J.K. Scott, who is a guy who's a hang time god. Like, he hits it up there, 4 or 5 seconds, which gives the coverage team a lot of time to get out there and cover punts, which has made a tremendous impact. You limit those opportunities for those hidden yards, those return yards, those yards in the special teams realm, then you're going to have a lot of success. And then for the kind of offensive side of special teams, they draft Darius Davis out of the fourth round out of TCU, who had 6 return touchdowns in college football, had 5 punt returns and 1 kick return. And we saw how electric he was as a punt returner in the preseason because he took a punt back 82 yards to the house and showed his just tremendous speed, agility, and quickness. He is going to be dangerous. He's a little bit on the light side, which is something to be a little bit concerned at. He's 165 pounds or so he's going to have to protect himself. But when he has the ball in his hands, he is dynamic, and he will make a difference for the Chargers in that respect this year.
Let's go back to the office for a second, talk about Justin Herbert. He got his bag, and deservedly so. He was one of the top passers last year. Do you feel like he's kind of like has a lot to prove? If he has sort of like that demeanor, kind of like that, oh, well, kind of like the, I don't want to say all shucks, but he kind of has that quiet demeanor about it. So does he feel like he kind of has to kind of prove himself anymore, the fact that he's worth that big payday he got?
I mean, Justin Herbert has been one of the most historic quarterbacks in the first 3 seasons of an NFL career in NFL history. So the numbers he's put up, I think, speaks for itself. And that's how Justin Herbert likes it. Justin Herbert is not a guy that's going to talk a lot. He's going to allow his play on the field to do the talking for him. And I think by all accounts, that play has spoken very, very loudly. So for Justin Herbert, I don't think he has anything to prove to anybody, to be quite honest. I think he has done enough. This is not a individual game. This is a team game. Wins are not a QB stat. So I think for Justin Herbert, he has done a tremendous job in his first couple of years. Although I do feel like the play for him to make the next step to be able to be in that top 3 of quarterbacks in the NFL, it is going to require winning and winning in the playoffs. So that's going to be what takes him to that next level. But I think by all accounts, he has everything in front of him this year to have an MVP caliber season. He has a great offensive line in front of him. He has a full complement of offensive weapons, and he has the right guy calling the plays on the offensive side to really unlock the ability of Justin Herbert. I feel like this year he is in for one of the best years of his career.
We're halfway home with our good friend, Mr. David Droegemeier, the co-host of the Locked On Chargers podcast. He's hanging out with us right here on Second City Sports. Sid LeKinney here with you live in 11 color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. All right, David, let's transition over to the rest of the AFC West division. Pay attention, Bears fans, because this is your AFC opponents on your schedule for this year. Of course, nationally, David, most opponents say that it's Kansas City, then everybody else follows thereafter. Where do you see the Chargers finishing up at the end of the year? Is it behind Kansas City, or will something strange happen between now and the end of the season where the Chargers can maybe overtake Kansas City?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would be strange, just because if you watch the Chargers and the Chiefs play against each other, nobody plays the Chiefs tougher in the NFL than the Chargers. I think the last 4 games have ended with a combined of 7 points. So as far as 7 more points than the Chargers. So it's been very, very close. Like, they are right there. I think it's going to come down to the end of the season. The Chargers play the Chiefs in week 18, and I feel like that could be a very, very meaningful game. I think the Chargers have the talent and ability to really beat anybody on their schedule. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen because the Chargers are going to Charger. They always lose games that they should win. That's just the way it is. And until they prove it otherwise, then that's going to be something I have to say. I don't like saying that. I hate it. I've been covering the Chargers for a very, very long time, over 20 years, and been watching them longer. So I understand what they are, and they have to buck that trend. They have to take that out of their vocabulary, so to speak, of the way that people talk about them. The only way they can do that is by winning football games.
What about the rest of the AFC West? Of course, you got the defending champion, Kansas City. We'll see if they can kind of, avoid that Super Bowl hangover, I guess. You've got the Raiders. You got, now Jimmy G's now at center. They just re-up with Josh Jacobs. Got that franchise tag. He's gonna prove a deal and such. Of course, Max Crosby among other players on that team. Then, of course, you got the Broncos. Sean Payton takes over. They got a whole new scheme. We'll see if Russell Wilson can go back to being the Russell Wilson we saw in Seattle. So what do you think about the rest of the teams in the West?
Yeah, so as far as the Raiders are concerned, I've always had a huge problem with Josh McDaniels. I don't think he's a good leader of men. The first time he was a head coach, it was an unmitigated disaster with Denver, and then he got an opportunity to be the head coach of the Colts, accepted that job, and then backed out at the last minute. That's just not something I respect. I mean, you're talking about somebody who is running your entire organization. And, to be honest, the beginning of his tenure as the Raiders head coach has not really given me any reason to believe that has changed. So I feel like there's problems at the top there. I feel like Jimmy G is someone who is unproven because he can't stay healthy. I mean, that's been the story of his career. When he's on the field, he does some good things, but that's the problem. He's missed a lot of time. I think the offensive line for the Raiders is a question mark. I don't feel like they're very confident in that unit. They do have some offensive weapons for sure. Obviously, Devontae is dynamic, and you have Hunter Renfrow, which is fantastic. Max Crosby is a difference maker on the other side of the field. But they have a lot of rookies and a lot of spots on their defense. So I think the Raiders, I'm not entirely high on how they're going to do this year. As far as the Broncos is concerned, we'll have to see what the Sean Payton effect is, right? Sean Payton's going to have to kind of do something similar that he did with Drew Brees in the latter part of his career, which is construct an offense that will allow Russell Wilson to succeed, because the way Russell Wilson succeeded before was being able to scramble, being able to run, being able to keep plays alive, and then throwing it deep. He can't really do that anymore. He's not really having that success because his processing really hasn't been there. I feel like the Denver Broncos are going to really rely on their running game. They're going to try to pound it this year. And I think that's probably the best way to complement Russell Wilson, because if he's throwing 25, 30 times a game, I don't think that's the best way for the Broncos to win football games. I think it's going to take a little time before they get that chemistry, and I think it might be too little, too late. So I think this is a 2-horse race in the AFC West. I think it's the Chargers and the Chiefs, and then it's everybody else.
Okay, let's take it further to the whole AFC conference, David. Of course, minus the AFC South, which I have Jacksonville winning that trash division. Where do you see the Chargers stacked against the rest of the AFC? Because all the other 3 out of the 4 divisions, you can make a case for almost all those teams to make it to the playoffs this year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the AFC conference is by far the best conference in football. I mean, you have 6 or 7 teams that you can legitimately say could go to the Super Bowl this year. I mean, there's a lot of stacked teams. I think in the NFC, you got the Eagles. I think maybe the Lions are sneaky good. I mean, there's a couple of teams out there that could do some damage, but the AFC conference is really tough. I think when the dust settles, you'll see the Chargers out there. You'll see the Chiefs out there. I think you'll see the Bills out there as well. The Dolphins, I'm not sure what to make of what they're going to do. I think there's, it's really about what Tua is going to be able to do out there. There's been a lot of change, so I think it's going to take some time for them to get that rolling. But there is several teams in the AFC, but I think those teams that I mentioned are going to be the ones at the end when it's all said and done.
All right, I won't put you on the spot just yet for a record for the Chargers, David. But I will say this: I mean, looking at their schedule now, of course, as I said, they play the Bears. They host the Bears, and I think in week 7 or 8, and then of course they got a pretty tough schedule. So, do you think they can pull off some upsets here? What do you think? And I know that they play the Chiefs very hard, so I'm thinking that they are going to split one of these games with the Chiefs. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to worry about records. I've already put record predictions out there, so that's no big deal. I don't mind putting it out there again. I have the Chargers this year going 11-6, and I do feel like there's an opportunity to go 12-5 as well. Health is going to be the biggest reason why they either do or they don't, because the talent is there, and I've said it, and I will continue to say it repeatedly. I feel like they have talent at every single level on both sides of the field. So the Chargers, if they stay healthy, that's kind of where I'm at. 11-6, 12-5, I feel like is an area that you should feel pretty good about this team. Talent-wise, there's not many other teams that stack up.
Last moment, too, with David Droegemeier, the co-host of the Locked On Chargers podcast. He's hanging out with us right here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakian here with you. Last question for me, David. You guys play in SoFi Stadium. You share their stadium with the Los Angeles Rams. I know Rams fans are complaining that they don't have the home field advantage, especially against their division opponents like Seattle and San Francisco. Of course, all the road teams that come in there, they dominate the crowd attendance. I'm watching the Chargers games. It seems like it's the same thing. Is the Chargers organization worried about that at all?
It's not. It's absolutely not the same thing. I think if you watch the Chargers games last year and watch their home games, they were definitely majority Charger fans. And I think that's something that has been a little bit of a change in the right direction as far as trying to establish an identity in a new market. I have seen those problems with the Rams, and yeah, I have seen that quite a bit with them. But I don't feel like it's been the same with the Chargers. The Chargers have done a much better job, especially at selling season tickets, getting fans in the building and having more of an advantage. And trust me, it's been a long time coming from playing in a soccer stadium to actually playing in SoFi and having some semblance of a home field advantage. So I feel like the Chargers, if they continue to win, they have all the elements of what you want to watch in a football team. I mean, that's why the Chargers have one of the most, prime time games out of anyone in the NFL. I think they're one of 3 teams that have over 6 prime time games this year. The NFL knows that the Chargers are an exciting team. They have a young, exciting quarterback. They have a lot of weapons on offense. They're a team that you want to watch. So I feel like, the Chargers are right there, man. I mean, this is going to be a very good season for them.
All right, David, again, thank you so much again for joining us. I have a feeling we're going to be having you back on. I'm just going to, maybe before they face the Bears too, I think that we might, in October. So we might, get you back on for that. But where people can find your podcast and all that other good stuff on social media.
Yeah, we're definitely going to be talking when the Chargers and Bears lock it up for sure. But you can find me pretty much anywhere. You find me on X at DroTalkSD. You can find the podcast as well at Locked On LAC. You can find us on our YouTube channel, Locked On Chargers, and anywhere that you get your podcast. We are giving you Chargers content 5 days a week.
All right. Thank you very much, David, for taking time on your busy schedule to join us right here on Second City Sports. Great job as always. And we'll try to get you back before that Bears-Chargers game in October. And good luck to your Chargers this year. And we'll definitely do this again down the road.
I appreciate it. Take care, you guys.
Thank you,
you too.
David. Thank you, David.
All right.
All right, of course, that was Mr. David Droegemeier from Lockdown Chargers. Of course, you can catch the podcast anywhere where you get your podcast, on YouTube and your whatever Play Store you have. It's all right there. It's a great listen, so make sure you guys check it out. So, of course, we got a couple more minutes before, we got our buddy Saul Rodriguez with us talk some baseball. What do you think about the AFC West? I mean, I kind of feel like I'm with David that, I think, the Chargers definitely challenged the Chiefs. Looking at their schedule especially, but I kind of feel like as long as it's always something with the Chargers, so that kind of really freaks me out. So what do you think of their chances of perhaps maybe not even getting the wild card, perhaps maybe overtaking the Chiefs in that division?
Yeah, we'll give our predictions next week on our show, but just looking at the division from the outsider's perspective, it is Kansas City against everybody else. But as David talked about, with that talent on offense, barring health, this team will score points. We've seen it over the last couple of years. It looks like it's going to be better than ever if everybody stays healthy. The question is, can you stay healthy on defense? Remember, Joey Bosa only played 5 games last year with 2.5 sacks, and our guy Khalil Mack, one-time Bear, he led the team with 8.5, only playing all the games, so 17 games. So it's going to come down to health. It's going to come down to defense, because if they can step up and create some more turnovers. Remember, when another former Bear, Bryce Callahan, led the team with 3 last year. That's something they need to turn around, talking about creating more turnovers. And their special teams has been their Achilles heel, Lakina, for years. And so we'll see if that squad can improve as well. But they do have a chance to overtake the Chiefs, at least for the division. Now, will they win that AFC West? Only if Patrick Mahomes is hurt and out for the year. Of course, we don't wish that on him. But I think that's the only way I think they'll take over the division. As David mentioned also, too, they played the Chiefs tough over the last few years. Remember, not last year, but the year before, they went into Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs. So if they could do it like they did a couple years ago, they could do it again if all systems are a go.
Yeah, so it's going to be very interesting. That division, it could be between those two, and maybe like I said, maybe the Broncos perhaps we'll see. But I think it's going to take another year or two. The Raiders, I mean, we'll see how Jimmy G does in that. You'll have to throw to Devontae Adams. Of course, you got Josh Jacobs, so that should help them out a little bit. But of course, you got Max Crosby on defense, but still, I don't trust Josh McDaniels, so that's gonna be a whole nother thing. So we'll do our records before next week. But it should be very interesting in the AFC West. So we're gonna switch some gears here and talk some diamond with our buddy Saul Rodriguez from WARR Media. We'll do some national stuff too. The Mariners, yay! Had a great
Mariners.
yes. Of course, now everyone's noticing them now. Also, too, of course, the Braves take game one of a big series against the Dodgers last night. We'll talk more of that with Mr. Rodriguez. And the Angels got rid of a lot of their trade pieces. Of course, we'll tell you where they ended up. It's clearly buddy Luis Giolito and Ronaldo Lopez. So lots of baseball, to talk still with our buddy Saul. We'll have that coming up right after this. Second Season Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Diamond Talk with Saul coming up right after this.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared. I mean, you're so
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Move it!
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports. We're live and live in color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid, that's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Kingdom McGee on the Twitter and at Kingdom again, the IG.
We have less than an hour left of this extravaganza we call it Sports Talk Radio Show. You have any questions or comments for us, especially for our next guest as we talk Major League Baseball, both locally and nationally? You can hit us up in the comment section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Your questions or comments in the comment section, the best ones will be placed up on the screen by Lakina.
All right, Sid. So let's not waste any time and talk some baseball nationally. Well, we may dabble into some of the local stuff as well. He's one of our favorites from WARR. Well, actually, he's our teammate actually from WARR Media, and of course, he covers baseball and other sports as well. There. So the one, the only, the fabulous Mr. Saul Rodriguez. Saul, how are you?
I'm good, guys. Thanks for having me. How are you guys doing?
Great. It's September, so yeah. Where's the Earth, Wind, and Fire September song we need? It's too bad we can't play that.
Yeah, I know, right?
Right, but look, you know what? It's September. We're gonna get some pennant races going on. Well, okay. Let's get the local stuff out the way.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff with the White Sox. Chris Getz. I'm sure you heard the presser yesterday. What do you think about this whole thing? Of course, also, I'm sure you heard Jerry Reinsdorf's comments as well. So, what do you think about all that? And could Chris Getz be the answer for them?
You know what? Yeah, it's a tough situation. I think all my friends that are White Sox fans, I'm just like, man, it just never stops. All this, it's just like an avalanche. It keeps coming down, and I don't think that Chris Getz is going to be able to stop that avalanche, if I'm being honest with you. But it's a guy, when I heard that they were, considering hiring from within, I knew that was a bad idea. But you know what? I'll give Chris a chance. If he could turn around positive, that's great for the White Sox. But I just think there are plenty of other options out there at the White Sox could have taken their time and decided maybe in the offseason. I don't know what the rush was, but they decided to go with Chris Getz as a guy who knows the division, knows the players that are in the system right now. The only problem with that is that, after, him being there for, a certain amount of years, they're sitting at 22nd in the Baseball America, minor league system. So I don't necessarily know how much of a difference he's going to make, but what the positive there is that he does, his familiarity with the organization and the players. So, hopefully for the White Sox sake, this is, where things turn around. But, as long as Jerry Reinsdorf is there, I don't know how much more, how much more up they can go. And I think some of the comments that he made were just, so just ridiculous. And I mean, it's just classic Jerry Reinsdorf is all I have to say really there. There's not much more that can be said. But yeah, I mean, the best you can do is hope right now for any White Sox fan, watching. It's just hope that, Chris is able to find a way to turn this thing around.
One last question on the White Sox before we move on, Saul, because I'm more than looking, I'm getting a headache. But one of the things that Chris Getz said in the press conference on Thursday, he said that there were no untouchables on this roster. I think realistically, I think there's only two, and that's Luis Robert and that's Dylan Cease. I think his performance overall this year, I'm talking about Cease, has costing him some money this year. I know he's under control for the next couple of years, but I know it's way too early to ask this question, but I'll ask it to you anyway. Do you really see Chris Getz really trading either one of those guys? Like I said to Lakina, unless you get a drop your jaws to the floor type deal that you cannot turn your back on it. I don't see Chris Getz trading any other one of those guys during this offseason. I really can't. That's just me.
Yeah, no, me neither. I think that would be insane to do it, especially as a new guy in there, right? But I understand where he's coming from with, there's no untouchables. It's, I think it's a fair thing to say, but yeah, you're right. I think trading Luis Robert and a guy like Dylan Cease when you're planning to compete, as they said, right, the White Sox, they're considered, they want to compete in 2024. So if you say that and then go out and trade, two bona fide stars, and no, I don't, and Dylan Cease is the type of guy that regardless of the type of season he's had, he's got the stuff to find it again. And there's no reason to get rid of him. And Luis Robert, of course, just out of the question. I mean, that's one of the best young players in baseball. So, I don't see them, getting rid of them anytime soon. And I think that would be just, a wild thing to do for a guy who's, barely a couple months into the job.
Hey, let's get out of the White Sox because I'm getting a headache. But let's go to the north side of town. Of course, Cody Bellinger just hit a home run. The Cubs had have a early 1-0 lead in the bottom of the fourth. As they're in Cincinnati. Of course, this is game one of a doubleheader tonight. This is going to be the start of a very tough stretch for the Cubs. I mean, they're going to be facing teams, like 500 or above. They're trying to get to not a divisional spot, but either a playoff spot with of course with the Reds, the Giants, and the Diamondbacks. So what do you think? How do you think the Cubs are going to be able to finish up this season? Can they catch it to Milwaukee? Can they get one of the wild card spots? What do you think?
Yeah, they could do both. I think it's going to be really hard to catch the Brewers. The only reason I say that, despite it just being 3 games and despite them coming off a series win, I just think that the Brewers, they play a certain brand of baseball, especially when they play against, good competition, that their pitching is just really good. And I think overall, even though the Cubs outpitched them in this last series, Brewers just have better pitching overall. So I think that's what helps them down the stretch, especially with great, better competition and all that in late, September baseball and all that. The Cubs, as you're talking that, I was watching the game too, and Jordan Wicks is a guy that could, play a major part in getting the Cubs starting pitching to where they want to be before, October, if they're able to make it to the postseason. But ultimately, I think the more realistic, if somebody had to ask me, would probably be a wild card spot, which would be fine. I think for Cubs fans, I don't think they're expecting to necessarily win the division, but it's definitely there for the taking. They're just gonna have to keep winning baseball games and see. Hopefully the Brewers, falter somewhere. But also at the end of the day, as long as they keep it close, they have that last series of the season against the Brewers. And if they keep them close, a couple games, the Cubs can decide for themselves, if they can win the division or not.
I said at the top of the show that Justin Steele should be your leader in the clubhouse for National League Cy Young, for the Cy Young Award. Given the injuries to Marcus Stroman, I know he started a long tossing program the other day. Call me crazy, but I'll ask you the question. Have you seen the last of Marcus Stroman this year? I'm not going to say that the Cubs don't need him. Obviously, you do if he's healthy enough to pitch. But have you seen the last of Marcus Stroman this year, or do you think he'll try to make it back in time for the playoffs? Should the Cubs make it there?
It's looking more and more like it, honestly, because every time they talk about him, there's not much of an update there. I think he did have a session where he threw the other day, but still, no update on that. So ultimately, I think he's done for the regular season. I think that if the Cubs do make it to October, to the postseason, then maybe he'll get a start or two in there, depending on what the situation is, because it doesn't really hurt, right? I mean, it's a guy who's probably going to be, he's obviously going to opt out. He's going to be a free agent, so why not put him out there in October if he's healthy enough? So. Yeah, I think for the regular season, it's looking more and more like he's done. But hopefully I'm wrong, because that would be huge for the Cubs to get Stroman back before the regular season ends.
Let's talk about baseball as a whole, Sal, I should say. We'll start with the AL East. Baltimore and Tampa looks like it's going to be between the two of them for the AL East crown. We know about Baltimore. We talked about them, religiously. Ali Rashman, Cedric Mullins, among others. They got a great starting pitching. Tampa has a pretty solid staff themselves. Who do you think comes out of that division?
Ooh, yeah, it's hard. I mean, I think. It's up for the grabs, as you said, right? But I think ultimately the Orioles have shown that they can, kind of take that division and keep it for a good amount of time, even if it is for a couple games. I just like the young talent. I like the guys they have on the team. I think the Rays have had some injuries that have kind of, put a wrench in their machine a little bit and kind of, stunted them, for a little part of the season, as good as they are. So I would say, as of right now, I think the Orioles still take the division. They play so well against other competition, and all that, and they're great in one-run games compared to the Rays. So yeah, I think push comes to shove, if I had to choose one of those teams, it'd probably be the Orioles. I think their young talent just sparks them right now, and having guys like Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson and all that is just going to help them in the long run. It's another thing, of course, obviously, with the Felix Bautista injury does hurt them, but they still have other arms in there that can help them out. And then also, I mean, I think they're good enough to win the division and all that. But when it comes to the playoffs, that's going to be a whole different test to see, their starting pitching take on, some competition like that day in, day out.
Besides not scoring enough runs during the month of August, what's wrong with the Texas Rangers?
Yeah, no, I know. I was discussing this with a buddy too. That's he's on the Rangers train and he's been on it, and I'm just like, I don't understand what's going on there. I mean, they've kind of playing a very inconsistent way of baseball the past couple months, and I don't necessarily know what the problem is there. I mean, look, their hitting looks very consistent in the sense of they're always going to hit, right? But the pitching is the part that I think that if you had to pick up a spot where they're kind of not to where they wanted to be. Obviously, they had a lot of injuries. DeGrom, obviously, they don't have necessarily a guy like that you would expect. Necessarily an ace consistently always out there. Nathan Eovaldi's always had injury issues and all that. Obviously, he's had a great season, but I think it's hurt them that DeGrom hasn't been the guy obviously out there that we expected him to be. Obviously, it didn't hurt, and Scherzer, as good as he is, as well. They hope I feel like they're asking a lot of the guy at his age, but who knows? I mean, this is a big test because this division is insane. I mean, you talked about it. Lakina talked about it. How the fact that that AL West race. I mean, it's going to go down to the wire, and those teams are just so good, especially the Mariners and the way they're playing, and it's going to be really tough for the Rangers to get a strong a stranglehold of the division. But at the end of the day, those three teams, the Mariners, Astros, and Rangers, they'll be in the playoffs. It's really just where they're going to end up.
Yeah, I mean, to piggyback off that AL West, the Mariners, of course, they had 21 wins in August. That's the most they've had in the calendar month in their whole franchise, which is sort of astonishing to me considering the history of that franchise. Houston, yes, Brandon, we have not forgotten about your Astros. One of our buddies on our YouTube page. So if you could put all those three names, well, I'll even put the Rangers in there as well. Who do you think comes out of that division? I know you said that all three of them might make the playoffs, but who's going to end up on the other side of that division?
Yeah, I was talking about this yesterday too, and I think it's one of those things where the Astros are, I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Astros have a little bit of Thanos moment and say, hey, we're inevitable. This is true. I mean, it's just every year they go out there and just get it done. And everyone's paying attention to the Mariners on a hot streak. While everyone's paying attention to the Rangers, scoring this amount of runs, whatever. The Astros are still there, and they're in between those two teams right now. So, honestly, I think if I had to choose, I would be comfortable in saying the Astros, just because at the end of the day, when the lights are brighter, these guys play a different brand of baseball, and those players have been there, done that. So I would say the Astros right now, because I mean it could go any which way, but I think I would choose the Astros.
We're halfway home with our guy from WARR Media, Saul Rodriguez, talking baseball right here on Second City Sports, the Friday edition. Sid LaKenna here with you, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Let's go back to the National League. Saul, of course, for NL Manager of the Year, Brian Snitker of Atlanta's name comes to mind. Of course, Craig Counsell from Milwaukee, and maybe, just maybe, David Ross should the Cubs somehow get into the playoffs. But Dave Roberts of Los Angeles, in my opinion, is the leader in clubhouse. Here's why. Because at this time last year, they were rolling comfortably with the 111-win season. Of course, they got knocked out in the first round of the playoffs by San Diego. But this year, you look at the Dodgers, as LaKenna mentioned, even though they dropped the first game of the 4-game series to Atlanta last night, and last night blows up again. What a shock. But I think, in my opinion, Dave Roberts has done a masterful job this year. Let's be honest here. Did you expect the Dodgers to have one of the best records in the National League in all of baseball? I didn't.
Yeah, no. I mean, look, year in and year out, I'm not surprised that the Dodgers, put together the team they do, put together the record they do, I should say. But yeah, no, early on in the season, I was like, man, is this the year finally that the Dodgers kind of regressed a little bit? It was looking like it, right? Everyone wasn't hitting as much as good as they usually do, right? And their pitching, you look at their pitching, and their pitching is really not as good as you expect a Dodgers team to have, pitches. Kershaw is doing his thing, but you look at the rest, and they've had a lot of injuries, obviously, with Buehler and all that. And, Lance Lynn, besides yesterday, Lance Lynn, and I was on the same boat as you, Sydney, obviously in a big game like that, Lance Lynn gets smacked around, but he was actually doing well before that, he had a few good starts with the Dodgers. But even then, they had to go out there and get a guy like Lance Lynn because they were kind of short on starting pitching. So, yeah, I think Dave Roberts deserves a lot of credit. I think putting together that pitching staff with a lot of those guys in there, Bobby Miller's a young guy that's showing his stuff in there. I mean, they got a guy like Selby Miller out of the bullpen, and Ryan Pepio, doing his thing as well. So, yeah, he deserves a lot of credit for putting together, a pitching staff like that, because the hitting, I feel like, is always going to come when you have a lineup like Mookie Betts, and Freddie Freeman, right? So, and even guys like James Outman, who obviously I don't think a lot of people expected to be the player that he is. He's playing great right now. So, yeah, it's a lot of things that have gone right for the Dodgers and has helped them to where they are right now. And this series with the Braves right now is easily the NLCS preview, most likely.
Yeah, I think, to piggyback off that, the Braves, I mean, I think they've hit 250 some home runs so far, and it's just now September. I know, you could probably make a case for Brian Snitker to be National League Manager of the Year. So do you think it's the Braves and everybody else?
It could easily be that. I mean, it's just they're from top to bottom just insanely stacked, from pitching to hitting and all that. They are just overall just better than the Dodgers, and I think that they showed that last night, that they're better, but not that much more. I think that they just showed how much more depth they have. I think the bullpen, they with AJ Minter and all that, they have some great arms in there, Joe Jimenez. So I think ultimately that's my pick to come out of the NL, because they're just that good. That lineup, as you mentioned, with the amount of home runs, and I mean, it really is unfair. It's like if you build an all-star team, I mean, this is the type of guys that you want on the team. It is just stacked from top to bottom, and guys like you've had great seasons from guys like Orlando Arcia, and Eddie Rosario. So it's great, for them, and I think they are the class of the NL, which is, I think, an understatement, honestly.
It looks like Aaron Boone may get the boot as Yankees manager at the end of the year, Saul. It looks like, do you think that General Manager Brian Cashman will be giving his walking papers as well at the end of the season, since the Yankees, it looks like they're not going to make the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, the Yankees, I feel like the Yankees are pretty stubborn when it comes to, saying bye to their guys. I think it would be in their best interest to do so, right? I think they've gotten to a place where, as much as I think, look, I'll tell you this thing. I have a buddy that's a Yankees fan. We're discussing this as well. I think that them bringing up those young guys as they're doing this week, with Austin Wells, Jason Dominguez, and all that, I think they're kind of showing like, hey, look, we still have some kind of motivation to compete, whether it be next year or whatever. And they're trying. Kind of, you could argue that maybe they're trying to save their jobs there, and like with Cashman, and I think I don't necessarily know if that's going to sway anybody because of how bad their season is right now, and as they're sitting now 65 and 69. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to save them, but personally, I think in the best interest for the Yankees is that they part ways with Boone and Cashman. I just think they need a fresh start. I just don't see them, doing the same thing next year, hoping for the best. I mean, it's something that I feel like we talk about with the White Sox, where it's like, you got to change something up, because if you just keep doing the same thing, it's just, it's ridiculous.
It really is. Going back to and I think with going back to since we talked about the waiver wires, I teased it earlier. Of course, Lucas Giolito and Ronaldo Lopez. The Angels are basically got rid of like most of their like their top guys. Of course, Ohtani looks like he's still hitting, but he's done pitching for the year. Looks like Mike Trout's done for the year. What happened with the Angels? I mean, they made a couple of big trades. You thought that maybe they're going to challenge in the AL West, but then everything started falling off. What do you think happened?
Oh man, I mean the Angels. It's a team that I think a lot of baseball fans root for just because Ohtani and Trout, right? But it's just every year I feel like it's the same thing as well with these guys that you're like, maybe they're playing a little better, maybe they can make it to the playoffs, maybe they can make a run, and they just let you down. It's sad, but yeah, I mean I think one thing after another in the second half, they just couldn't win big series, whether it be against the Rangers, whether it be against the Rays. They couldn't come up clutch with that, and obviously it hurts not having Trout, who's on the IL again. But also it hurts again. Obviously in the last week and a half, the news came out that of course Ohtani has a tear in his UCL, and he's not going to pitch until probably 2025 and all that. So yeah, it's really rough. They just been getting bad news after bad news, and it just hasn't worked out for them. And I think that it's just the whole Angels aura. I feel like it just never works out for these guys, and it looks like Ohtani's gonna walk, and who knows where Trout is at health wise. So yeah, it's just another disappointing Angels year, and I wish I was saying different, because you just wish you could see Ohtani, Trout in the playoffs. That's something that everyone could have told those kids in the future that they saw.
Last couple moments with Saul Rodriguez from WARR Media. He's the co-host at the At Bat podcast. He's hanging out with us right here on Sports Zone Chicago, Second City Sports. Sid Lakina here with you. Saul, the National League MVP, I think Lakina can attest to this. I said this at the All-Star break. I think it's Ronald Acuna Jr.'s award to lose from the Atlanta Braves. Of course, he becomes the first player to have 30 home runs and over 60 stolen bases in the season. I know we talk about Mookie Betts and to a smaller extent Freddie Freeman, but what do you think about Ronald Acuna's chances of winning the National League MVP? Is this his to lose, or those other guys, the names I just mentioned, do they have a realistic shot at getting that award? Yeah, no, I think it really is just Betts and Acuna that I think are going to be, the ones in the running for this. But it's going to be really hard. I mean, look, I think it really is. It does help Acuna kind of. You could argue that what will cement it is the fact that he got that 30 home runs, 60 stolen base type thing. That helps him a lot. I think that does. But I've thought about it and I've looked at the numbers and all that with Betts and Acuna if you want to like split hairs. And one of the things that does help Mookie's case is the fact that he plays great defense. He's one of the best defenders in baseball. So, and the fact that he plays everywhere, right? I think, he's played second base and all that. So that's probably what helps him in his case. But yeah, if I had to pick one right now, it'd probably be Ronald Acuna, just because of the historic season he's having. Because at the end of the day, that helps. That's the one thing that, if you're doing something that nobody does, say like, for example, Aaron Judge that broke that home run record, it helps. It just does it. You're doing something that nobody's ever done before. And so it does help your case. So yeah, as of right now, I think that if I had to guess the last month, who gets the MVP, I think it's Ronald Acuna.
What about his teammate Matt Olson? I think he may. Some people may say, "Wait a minute, he may have a shot at this." So, what do you think of his chances?
Yeah, you're right. Actually, that's a good point. I think anytime there's multiple MVP candidates on a team, you almost have to wonder how many votes they're going to steal, right? Because Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, it's another thing too, right? It might come down to the wire. It might be closer than people think, because Freddie Freeman's also a candidate for MVP. But Matt Olson has just had a ridiculous season. I mean, how good has he been for a team that maybe was wondering, was it the right decision to get rid of Freeman? But they're both great players, but he's got a great chance. I think really the guy who's going to finish third is between those first basemen in Freddie Freeman and Matt Olson, but it's interchangeable because of how good they are. And I think either one of them can finish top 3.
Last question from me, Saul. Of course, we saw this team at their managerial change last year and made it all the way to the World Series, even though they lost. And that's the Philadelphia Phillies. They had a few players that were injured to start the year, including Bryce Harper. It looks like he's starting to tear it up now. Of course, you have Kyle Schwarber, Zach Wheeler, who should have been on the White Sox, but that's a whole nother story. But what's the percentage that you give the Philadelphia Phillies to make it back to the World Series to represent the National League?
Ooh. I think they could easily do it. I think they definitely have the experience. They definitely have the pitchers that, they turned it on in October. But can they beat the Braves in a series? Because I think that's probably what's going to have to happen eventually, is they're going to have to meet up and take them down. I don't know. I mean, I've liked this little resurgence that Trey Turner's had. I think he's played a lot better since, that ovation he got for the fans. And, they have a very structured, team with the bullpen and Kimbrel and all that. So they have the pieces to do so. But I just think ultimately the Braves are just better this year. So I would give them a percentage of maybe like 57. I think it's almost 50-50 because I wouldn't be surprised if they make it, but I just think I would probably pick the Braves if I had to.
All right, last question from me about, let's go to the AL MVP race. I guess if there is a race, so do you think it's all Shohei Ohtani, and if not, who can come in and get it, take it from him?
Yeah, no, I think it definitely is it's Shohei Ohtani's. I think if Aaron Judge didn't get injured for so long, he would be probably the guy that would compete for that second spot. But yeah, it's just the season he put together, even with the injury, even with the missing a month and a half of starts, it's still an unbelievable season. I think you kind of have to give it to him there. And it's one of those things where who knows what Ohtani's future looks like pitching wise. And I think it would just be disappointing to see him not get this one because of, even if you give me 20 starts, whatever it was, it's just as impressive. But obviously there's plenty of guys out there that other people could talk about that have made an impact on teams that are in contention. Say like the Orioles, for example, like an Adley Rutschman. I understand that people talk about, oh look, they're making the playoffs, all that, but ultimately there's nobody that really stands out to be like statistically and to take down Ohtani and having his great season. So yeah, I'm going full on Ohtani there.
All right, this has been Saul Rodriguez. He is the co-host of the At Bat podcast from WARR Media. You can download their podcast at WARR Media Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Saul, thank you very much, as always, for taking the time to join us here today on the show. Much continued success, and next time we bring you on, it'll be playoff time, and maybe your Cubs will be part of that that goes in the tournament.
No, yeah, hopefully, guys. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
All right, take care. Have a good weekend.
You too. Bye.
All right, that was Mr. Saul Rodriguez from WARR Media. Okay, Sid, let's go through the schedule real quick. The weekend schedule for the long Labor Day weekend, of course. The Cubs and the Reds are going on right now. They're tied at 1 as we speak. Of course, a doubleheader there. Today, Miami and Washington. Miami trying to keep their very slim, albeit slim, wild card hopes alive. Seattle continue their start their road trip out. If you get a chance to see, Rev Run actually talked to the team. Earlier we saw they were all geared up. Run DMC gear with the kicks and the chains.
Yes,
that was really cool. If you guys didn't get a chance to see it, make sure to check it out. Of course, Rev Run talked to Julio Rodriguez is a big fan of Run DMC, so that was a really cool moment. The Mariners start their East Coast road trip against the Yankees. We got Tampa Bay and the Guardians. We'll see. Look at you, Mason start this weekend. That should be interesting if that happens. Minnesota and Texas. That should be an interesting one for positioning.
Texas.
Yes, right. Boston and Kansas City. And of course, the White Sox host Detroit.
And to finish out the rest of the weekend schedule, the Yankees will take on the Astros. Philadelphia will take on Milwaukee. Pittsburgh and St. Louis, boo. Toronto will face Colorado. Big series for Toronto on the road this weekend. Christine, the Queen Manika's husband, soon-to-be husband, Chris's Anaheim Angels will take on Oakland, the worst team in baseball. Baltimore will visit Arizona. San Francisco will visit San Diego, and Atlanta and the Dodgers will continue their 4-game series this weekend from La La Land.
Yeah, your national TV coverage, your Fox regional doubleheader. I'm assuming that here in Chicago we'll get Minnesota and Texas. I guess also to the others we'll get Philadelphia and Milwaukee, and of course the Peacock Sunday game of the week will be the Phillies and the Brewers. Go Phillies!
Yes.
And of course the Sunday night baseball game of the week is New York and Houston. You thought that maybe that would be a better matchup of the season. Go figure.
Right. And quickly for Monday, your Labor Day schedule looks like this. The White Sox is in Kansas City. San Francisco will travel to Chicago to take on the Cubs on the north side. The Battle of Texas will have Houston versus the Texas Rangers from Globe Life Ballpark. Toronto at Oakland. Boston at Tampa Bay, another key series in the AL East there. Colorado and Arizona. Seattle at Cincinnati. That should be a good series. You got the Twins at the Cleveland Guardians, Milwaukee at Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, San Diego, and Baltimore versus the LA Angels.
That game will be Labor Day night on FS1, and go Seattle, of course.
Yes.
Coming up. All right. So, of course, we got our girl, Christine Manika of KXRB on deck. We haven't seen her in a few weeks, so we'll catch up with her. I'm sure she'll have a lot to say about the White Sox moves. And
yes.
And a good stuff for her Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They have a tough game in a couple of weeks, so we'll talk to her about that. And the rest of week 1 in college football, too, and a whole lot more. So don't go away. Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago, Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown, our girl Christine Manika of KXRB coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
And I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on a fun Friday fun edition as we commemorate this long Labor Day weekend. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me on the Twitter, X, Akina McGee on the Twitter, X, Akina McGee on the IG.
This is our last break of the show for today and for the weekend. If you have any questions or comments for us and our panel, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. And just a daily reminder, you can also catch Sports Zone Chicago, especially for this long 3-day weekend for many of us. You can catch Sports Zone Chicago now available on Roku TV.
All right, so we haven't seen our girl in a couple of weeks. I know a lot. She's been doing a lot of traveling. Her fiance Chris won a tournament during the span. So let's catch up with her. I'm sure he's got a lot to say about the White Sox, especially. So from our girl from KXRB, our girl Miss Christine, the Queen Manika. Yay, Christine!
Yay!
How are you?
We're doing good. It's September already. Can you believe it?
I know. This month is it flew by.
Yeah, so what were your thoughts about the White Sox press conference yesterday naming former player Chris Getz as their new general manager and president of baseball operations?
You want to start off there? You don't want to start off with the Giolito trade, then the shooting, or Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams getting the boot?
Well, you want
purge. Purge it all out.
There's a whole bunch of stuff going on with that team right now. I will say I remember Chris Getz a little bit. I didn't really know that he and Reinsdorf were close because apparently this hire happened so quick. He has to know Jerry or has worked with Jerry in some way, shape, and form. I don't know. It's kind of mixed right now. He's a young guy, which is good that he's not someone, Tony La Russa just trying to, hobble his way through the field, which is good. So I don't know. I'm kind of going to withhold my judgment until something happens. There's only so many weeks left in the season. And unfortunately, there's only so much that Chris Getz is going to be able to do. So we won't really see anything, what he's capable of until the off season, I think. I think he's probably just trying to get acclimated with the team, with Pedro and everything else going on within the organization too.
Do you agree with his assessment there are no untouchables, even though he did pick up, he said Pedro Polo is going to be back next year. Do you see a scenario where we see a Lucas Giolito or a Dylan Cease getting traded during the offseason?
What did Jerry Reinsdorf call it yesterday? Like a dumpster fire? Like it's just a disaster and he's never had a worse year in baseball like this one? Something like that. I could see Pedro staying on. It's not his fault. Bottom line, it's not his fault the way that the team is going. Was he probably a little bit over his head when the season started? Yeah, but you got to start at the top when it comes to something like this. And we've all been saying this for years now, is that you got to go at the top. You got to really trim up the fat at the top in order to solve the bigger issue. So I think Chris Getz is going to do a lot of his stuff in the offseason and kind of go from there. I'll just call this season what it is. It's a wash. It was a trial run to what's going to be the future of the White Sox now. So if I were the organization, I would give Pedro another chance just because this entire season wasn't his fault. There were a lot of contributing factors, whether it was on the field or off the field in the front offices.
As Lakina said, we haven't had you on in a while, so we're letting you purge a bit. So we'll go back on the timeline since we're still talking White Sox at least for a couple more minutes. What was your initial reactions a couple of weeks ago when Reinsdorf gave Kenny and Rick the boot? Did you even see that coming? Because none of us didn't.
I knew Rick was bound to happen. Kenny was a little bit shocking. I thought maybe that they would keep Kenny Williams, if anything, just because whatever Rick Hahn was doing, maybe the reasoning with that was Kenny was kind of helping him throughout the last couple of years. So maybe they found him as being a little bit responsible. But I mean, Kenny Williams has been with the organization, what, 25 years? That sounds about right.
Yeah.
And
30 years, and when he comes days as a player,
Yeah. And, and he's just been a fixture of White Sox baseball. Not to throw this out there, but my mom actually taught his grandson a couple of years ago in school. And he was always very nice, and aside from that, when it comes to baseball, I just never thought that he would get let go, just because when he does give an interview, it's usually something important that he has to say. He's not one to get in front of the mic or to willingly do a press conference. So again, I knew that Rick was going to be the one to get the boot, but Kenny, again, maybe because it was an accessory thing, they just decided to wipe the slate clean there. But yeah, it is a little bit surprising for Kenny, in my opinion.
You mentioned the shooting. Whatever, for people who don't know, 2 women were injured in a shooting. First they said it was a retired police officer, or I guess off-duty police officer, I should say.
Yeah.
Then they said it came from outside G-rate. Then they were saying that, a woman with her belly fat, one of the women that got shot, she did not hurt. It's just like it's just a whole lot of shenanigans and stuff. That what do you think? I mean, I don't want to spend your harp on it too much, but what do you think? What's your thoughts on this?
So I was actually at Wrigley Field for the Jonas Brother concert when this was all going down. And I'm just like, of course, something has to happen when I'm back in town. And I'm on the north side, not too far from where that action's happening. But I will say I did not, and I think a lot of fans will agree with this. I don't think the way that the organization handled it right away was the best way. And I know it was tough because Rick was gone, Kenny was gone. They really didn't have anybody to speak on this. But instead of saying, no, a shooting didn't happen, like, you got to be upfront in a situation like that, especially when there's a game going on, there's fans in the stands that could potentially be in danger. We don't know the circumstances behind what happened, but the first thing that came in my head was, how did that gun get past security? And if the gun did get past security, who's the head of security that needs to get a real evaluation and the guard to let that pass, to let that slide? Because that's just unacceptable, regardless of the situation and what happened. It was kind of not the smartest quote, in my opinion, when I forget who it was, the VP of operations said, oh, you would hear the gunshot and whatnot. That's not technically true because there's silencers on these guns. And sometimes you really don't hear it, like if the silencer is attached to it. So a lot of crazy theories have been going around, like the bullet coming from outside the stadium. Have you seen how big that thing is and where the gun was aiming? Right. Like there's no way that the bullet came from outside of the stadium. I fully believe that this happened inside the stadium and there wasn't an altercation involved, but somehow this gun got passed. And I think security measures have to be reevaluated, and or the head of security.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Christine. And what made matters worse from a PR department for the White Sox, of course, that was a concert that was supposed to take place after the game featuring Vanilla Ice. I love the 90s tour. Of course, they got canceled, but on the scoreboard it said due to a quote unquote technical issue, the concert was canceled. Like, you got to be upfront with you. Now,
you got to be upfront with that.
Right, you have to be upfront, but I get it at the time that you don't want to alarm fans for them to go crazy and be discombobulated. I get it to a point, but at the end of the day, you still cannot lie to people. The fans and the workers who work in there, their safety comes first, period.
I would have said something along the lines of due to unforeseen circumstances.
Yeah.
Because technical issues make it seem like there's something technically wrong, like with the sound, video, whatever. Now, unforeseen circumstances, that gives you a little bit more of a safety net to where you will answer whatever questions there are out there. But the fact that you said technical difficulties and there were already rumors going around that a gun was fired off, like that wasn't doing anybody any favors there. So I think that's what got the fans the most upset. Not the fact that the concert was canceled, but the fact is that they weren't upfront with the fans about what directly was going on.
Still a lot of questions. I'm sure it'll come out. I'm sure it has to.
Sure,
So
yeah.
Someone's going to be leaked. But let's go back to on the mound for a second. Of course, as you mentioned, Lucas we mentioned it earlier. Lucas Giolito and also Renato Lopez. Of course, they were traded from the White Sox to Chris's Angels.
Yep.
Now they were in about a few players who were put on waivers, and they were actually picked up by the Guardians of all teams.
Out of all teams.
Yeah, so what do you think? What do you think how all that transpired, and how does Chris feel about all that? That was a whole strange last month for the Angels and such.
Yeah,
for them too.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was bittersweet because Giolito did great things for the White Sox, but Giolito is also from that area. He's from the SoCal area. So it was going to be a nice little homecoming for him. Unfortunately, I think it lasted less than a month that this all went down. And who knows? We don't know what goes on off the field. We only see what happens on the mound. Maybe something personally is going on with Giolito that he's just not there right now. And same with the Angels. Maybe they thought, oh, we're going to be in playoff contention, da-da-da-da-da. Well, now that Shohei isn't pitching anymore this season, they kind of knocked their chances down a little bit. So they had to be realistic. And they figured, you know what? This guy hasn't been on the team that long. He's an okay pitcher, but he's not where we want him to be. Move him on to a different team that can potentially do really well in the postseason. And they went with the Guardians with that.
Before we move on to college football, Christine, I know this season for the White Sox has been a disaster, but I'd like to bring on a special figure to say hello to you.
What?
Mr. Dylan Cease. Yes, he's happy to see you. He's happy to see you.
He looks like younger Dick Butkus.
A little bit, yeah.
He doesn't even look like him, in all honesty.
Oh my God!
For those of you listening back on the replay on a WARR Media podcast, I'm holding up the Dylan Cease bobblehead that was given away to 20,000 fans last week against.
Someone needs to reevaluate that bobblehead. That it does not look like.
No, it doesn't. That is not. No, it doesn't. No.
They said that this mustache was real hair. I doubt that. I'm touching it right now. It looks like from somebody's front room rug.
That's the problem. I don't even think it's that big in real
life.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, your guy Dylan Cease wanted to say hello. Now let's move on.
First it was bad PR, now it's just bad gimmicks.
Bad bobbleheads, oh Lord.
Bad bobbleheads.
That's not a great thing.
All right, let's move over to college football. Of course, this is an opening weekend for college football. Before we get to some of the big games this weekend, Christine, your Notre Dame Fighting Irish, they won overseas last week.
I can't believe it. Actually, no, I can't believe it. I think Marcus Freeman's going to be a great asset, a great head coach for this team. We didn't really see what he did last year because it was just one game, and it was a bowl game. So it's his first time coaching this team, and it's for a title, essentially. So that's a tough situation for any coach to be in. Now to actually see Freeman's guys, to see them on the field in action, I think they looked great. I know that Navy hasn't had the best season in the last couple of years, and that's just always a fun rivalry for the University of Notre Dame. I didn't think that they were going to literally choke in Ireland, you know? And I was mentioning this to my mom the other week. I would be curious to know, obviously Notre Dame fans travel anywhere where the Irish are, right? I'm more curious about how did the locals feel, you know? How did the Irish feel about Notre Dame being in Dublin? Because that's pretty cool. That doesn't happen too often. So to see that kind of unfold, listening to the game at 12 noon or whatever it was kind of surreal.
Right, and it was a nice day too. So it looked really
which
good.
doesn't happen too often in Ireland. Nice
days.
Yeah.
That's probably why they want. That's probably why they wanted to play it in late August instead of maybe in October like they usually play.
It'd be rainy, cold, all that. Ruby 2.0. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. That's probably why they wanted to avoid all that. And that was probably a smart thing. on their part. Going through the rest of the scores real quick from yesterday. Utah beat Florida 24-11. My buddy Mike Berman from NBC Chicago, his Mizzou Tigers had a nice, a solid game against South Dakota, 35.
Yeah, University of South Dakota. Yeah.
Well,
there's 2 South Dakotas, so you got to be specific.
Yeah, USD. This is the one that. Oh, yes. So the Minnesota beat Nebraska. It actually turned out to be a pretty good game, 13-10. The score maybe not, but the game itself actually was okay. And Arizona State, after I think it was like a 3-hour weather delay, so they finished up Southern Utah 24-21. Now going into the games for this weekend coming up tonight. Michigan State hosts Central Michigan. That's going to be at 6:00 on Fox Sports 1. You got Miami, the Battle of Miami. You got Miami of Ohio and the U, Miami of Florida.
The U.
Yeah, ACC on the ACC network. Georgia Tech and Louisville. That should be a fun early ACC matchup at 6:30 on ESPN. Kansas meets Missouri State at 7:00 on the Big 12, I should say, at ESPN Plus. And Stanford and Hawaii, newest ACC member, Stanford. We'll get to that in a second.
Boy.
Hawaii, that's on CBS Sports Network at 10:00 tonight.
Yeah, some of the big games for Saturday, tomorrow, Saturday, for those listening back on the replay. I'm actually looking forward to this game. It's at Big News Saturday, Eastern Time. That's 11 a.m. Chicago time on Fox. Deion Sanders and his Colorado Buffaloes will play number 17 ranked TCU. I'm definitely looking forward to this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you've seen the promos there, of course. They got Tulich and the quit from MC Hammer. Yeah, they're really
the cowboy hats.
We'll see. They'll definitely see how his team looks against the reigning Big 12 champions, and of course also to the national championship runner-up in TCU. So it should be fun. Tennessee and Virginia at the same time on ABC. First Peacock game for the Big Ten. You got Michigan hosting East Carolina. That's going to be the first of Jim Harbaugh's suspension, so that should be interesting at 11 a.m. on Peacock. Remember, that's going to be on straight on Peacock, so check out.
And his dad's coaching for him.
Yes.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's actually a pretty good coach, way back when. So that'll be an interesting concept there. Oklahoma and Arkansas State on ESPN. Iowa and Utah State. That should be an interesting one at FS1 at 11 a.m. Some other Purdue at first, I'll say on the Big Ten Network. Northern Illinois, they go to Chestnut Hill, Massachusetts, to face Boston College on the ACC Network at 11 a.m.
Congratulations to their radio voice, Ron Baker. This will be his last year. He's going to retire.
Yeah, 44 years. I know. It's going to be weird. Yeah, it's gonna be weird not gonna be able to hear him on the radio. I listened to a couple of times. I think he does college hoops too, I believe. So it's gonna be tough. But yeah, he had a great career too. I saw that earlier, so that was a happy retirement. I hope Northern Illinois has a good season for him this year. Ole Miss and Mercer. You got some else, Sid?
Yeah, at 2:30 Chicago time on CBS, the Big Ten on CBS debut. We have number 3 Ohio State visiting Indiana. At the same time on ABC, Boise State at number 10, Washington. Also at 2:30 on Fox, Rice at number 11, Texas. And this is for Christine the Queen on NBC at the same time at 2:30 Central Standard Time. Tennessee State versus number 13, Notre Dame. I don't think the Fighting Irish should have a problem with Tennessee State.
Yay!
Yeah, I don't think. I don't think his Marcus Freeman's guys are gonna be looking too far ahead with their match against Ohio State coming up in a couple of weeks. I don't think he won't. I don't think he'll let them do that. Some other games. Let's see.
Real quick, Lakina, before I forget, if I can get the schedule here, the Chicago Football Classic tomorrow will be seen live in living color on WGN TV at 3:00 Chicago time.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you get to see the Battle of the Bands and all that other good stuff. So
Mississippi Valley State, the home of NFL Hall of Famer Jerry Rice. Mississippi Valley State versus Central State. Of course, that game will be taking place here in Chicago at Soldier Field. You can watch that live tomorrow, Saturday at 3:00 Central Standard Time on WGN. I'll definitely be watching some of that.
Yeah, go see Battle of the Bands and all that good stuff.
Yes.
I know the ticket sales are pretty good too. If not, they're already sold out. So make sure you guys check that out for those of you on the WGN here in Chicago. Georgia could start their title defense hosting UT Martin. That's going to be on SEC Network Plus, also ESPN Plus. So stream that. Caleb Williams and the USC Trojans host Nevada. That's going to be on Pac-12 Network. Good luck with that defense. I did not see that defense at all. Texas A&M against New Mexico at 6 o'clock on ESPN. Let's see here. Oklahoma State is Arkansas. This should be a good one here. The Battle of the Carolinas. You got North Carolina and South Carolina on ABC at 6:30. That should be a fun one. Also, two old rivals face each other on NBC. You got Penn State hosting West Virginia on NBC at 6:30 at the same time.
Yeah, and that theme song will be done by Chicago area band Fall Out Boy.
Yeah, that should be interesting. That should be pretty interesting here. Wyoming and Texas Tech. Wyoming hosts Texas Tech on 6:30. Also 6:30 on CBS, I should say. A little primetime match there. Mountain West Conference getting a little bit of love, and the Big 12 as well. UCLA and Coastal Carolina on ESPN at 9:30. Going into Sunday, you got should be a great Northwestern and Rutgers. That's gonna be on CBS. That should be interesting.
I can't believe they're playing. Who's the coach? Who's coaching?
Coach Braun. He was at North Dakota State, actually.
Oh gosh, they're gonna lose. Well, they deserve it after all that. Not the players, but gosh.
Yeah,
right. We understand, Christina.
Yeah, we get it. Yeah, oh yeah.
I'm very surprised the NCAA did not suspend him for the season. I'm very actually, it's the NCAA. Never mind.
I don't think they were gonna do that, but
sweep it under the rug. They have enough stuff going on.
Oregon State and San Jose State to complete the CBS doubleheader on Sunday at 2:30, and a big one here, rematch of last year's great matchup. You got LSU and Florida State. That's gonna be on ABC. That should be a fun one. Yeah. And Labor Day weekend, you got Clemson and Duke on ESPN at 7.
Ooh.
Going back to Saturday, Lakina, year 3 of the Brett Bielema era from the Fighting Illini. They'll host Toledo. That's Saturday, tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. That game can be seen on the Big Ten Network.
Yep, that should be a fun. We'll see how Illinois looks. I mean, I think they'll be okay. I don't know if they'll be. They should be up there for the Big Ten West, I think. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see how they
medium expectations right now for them.
Yeah. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. It should be interesting. Their game as well, and that is your schedule for this weekend in college football. Busy week ahead, so I will give you guys update on all the great games, stats, all that stuff too. As Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago, Lakina McGee, City Brown, our girl KXRB. Christine Manika joined us these last few minutes. Let's talk some Bears real quick, Christine. I know Tyson Bagent got the number 2 spot behind Justin Fields. What do you think about that?
I think he's got a lot of energy. People are kind of like, okay, we'll see how this goes. I think he has the mentality of like he's in the big leagues, right? But he still has like that college mindset, the way that he is on the field, if that makes sense, with his energy, with his boisterous, I don't know, what would you call it, aura about him. So if anything, he would be fun to watch if something were to happen to Fields.
Yeah. And also too, what do you think about the let's just I know it's Friday. I can't talk. We'll get Christine's official prediction next week as the NFL season starts. But what is your overall feeling about the team right now for the Bears? Do you expect them to surprise some people? I know a few people naturally expect them to go from worst to first. So what is your feeling about this Bears team right now? As we put your prediction in pencil. I think that there will be some surprises, I think. I'm a little bit worried about what's going to happen off the field just because there's been a lot of ups and downs with Chase Claypool when it comes to certain injuries and then him not being at practice and whatever. So I'm a little bit concerned about all that drama that goes on off the field, because let's face it, wide receivers have some of the biggest egos. Stephon Diggs of the Buffalo Bills. Right, exactly.
Yeah, for one, yeah.
I think Fields is going to be better. I'm holding out hope for Fields this year. I'll give it a couple of games. And if I'm still seeing the same stuff as last year, then I'll be a little bit worried. But I think right now there are going to be surprises. They're not going to have the worst record, but I think they're going to pick up a little bit more energy after last season.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the thing. A lot of people feel the same way. Yeah, okay, real quick before, because I want to mention, Mrs. Your guy Victor Hovland won the FedEx Cup. Yeah, I got that nice little news, and I'm sure he'll be on the Ryder Cup team too for Europe. I'm sure.
Yes.
So, what do you think about that?
Oh, I'm so happy for him. You know, when Chris won Minot 2 weeks ago, it's the same day that, you know, Hovland won the previous tournament before the tour champions.
BMW, the BMW.
Yeah, BMW. Thank you.
Here in Chicago. Yep.
And I just said, look at that. My two favorite people won on the same day. So I was really excited about that. And Victor, he's so great for the future of golf, whether it's for European athletes or for American athletes. He's 25 years old. He has the energy. He has the drive. And he could get people excited about playing golf.
Yeah. All right, Christine, we still have a couple minutes left. I know you are away taking care of some stuff for the past few weeks, and we can't wait for you to join us again starting next week, as we mentioned, as the NFL season kicks off. But what were some of the things that you were doing on your award tour where you were away from us for the last few weeks?
Boy, I was just doing a lot of wedding stuff. Before that, I had my future in-laws in town, and Chris was in a tournament that weekend, so we were just kind of all over the place, and we're still kind of all over the place this month, but that's okay. You know, we're gonna run with it.
Well, yeah, look, we're going into the summer to fall, so yeah, I think there's always a lot of weirdness going on. You know, and also Chris, he won a tournament. I saw from
He won Minot, the big Minot Open for North Dakota, and it's all the way up basically in Canada at that point. But he had a great tournament, and I couldn't be happier for him. And he came in second place last week even, so he's had a great couple of weeks. Yes, absolutely, yes.
Love it. Yeah, tell him we said congrats to him and continued success. Yeah.
You mentioned, Christine, you were here in Chicago last week with the Jonas Brothers concert. I saw those in Wrigley. Did you have any rear vibes stepping in that place, or you didn't care?
Oh, always. That's always my joke. Always. I remember when I first went out to Wrigley Field. Believe it or not, it was about 6 or 7 years ago when the Jose Quintana trade went down, and I was interning at Fox 32 at the time. And I went out with my photog, and he's like, do you need a minute? And I said, yeah, I think I'm going to need a minute before I step out here. He's like, don't worry. I was the same way when I first came to Wrigley Field. But in all seriousness, it's like a downtown Disney before you go into the Disneyland park, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean, and credit to Theo Epstein for that, just because, I mean, literally it's open container where you go, whether it's a concert, a game, they block off the streets and you can just run wild. So I can see why the residents are kind of a little bit annoyed at times with Wrigley, but it's a historic field. It was so cool to be out there and see it. I'll be hanging out there. I don't know what my sister has planned for my bachelorette weekend, but we're kind of going to be hanging around that area. So that should be.
Oh dear, that should be interesting.
I know a lot of pictures coming. I know that.
Right. I don't know what to expect out of it. So I'm just after seeing it, I'm excited to explore that part of the city a little bit more.
Yeah, it's a great part of the city. So I'm sure I'm sure your sister will probably have something interesting.
I don't know. She's kept a pretty tight lip, so who knows?
Oh boy, that should be. It should be a too. Yeah,
nothing too inappropriate. Nothing too inappropriate.
No. Of course not. But say anything else before we disperse.
I just want to wrap up by saying that the Ricketts family, they've, as the kids would say, they've done it up big over there. Like Christine says, a playground over there. And I'm not going to lie to you. I like walking around there. Of course, the best place to watch a baseball game is Sox Park. I'll say it to the day I die. But, Wrigley has a nice atmosphere outside that park. It's cool. But to watch a real baseball game, you go to the South Side. I'll leave it at that.
Oh boy,
or Tennessee.
Yeah, Tennessee's good too. Yeah, I was.
The White Sox better not move down there, but I'll leave it at that.
I don't think that would happen. If anything, they'd go to the suburbs, not Nashville.
Yeah.
Same here. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, probably the South suburbs. I think that wouldn't make too much sense to go up north.
Yeah.
But you never know with Jerry, so we'll see. On that note, you can follow me at Kingdom McGee on the Twitter and at Kingdom McGee on the IG. You
can follow your Shirley City Brown on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. Christine, where can the lovely people follow you on social media?
Well, I still have the bird, so you can follow me on Twitter at @Manika_KXRB.
You lucky son of a gun. Of course. Second City Sports every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports of Chicago on the YouTube channel. And also too, you can catch the audio version on WARR Media Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, all that other good stuff.
Yeah, programming note, we will not be on this Monday because we'll celebrate Labor Day with the rest of you, but we'll be back for our big extravaganza on Wednesday. And we'll be back on next Wednesday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. And, of course, our regular show next Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, featuring this girl right here, Miss Christine, the Queen Maga, as we get you set for the opening weekend of the National Football League.
Yeah, man, I think just guessing these games is going to be a crapshoot. Can I say that?
Yeah,
you just did.
Well, you just did. I'll say you just did. So yeah, it probably is. Well, I think predicting the division winners are going to be that's going to be really the crapshoot. That's what we're going to be doing next week. So yeah, so we got extra week. So we're going to do our divisional winners, of course, the week 1 game. So that'll be interesting too. Please don't take our picks at face value, folks. Just saying.
No.
Of course, you can catch our show, of course, also too on Roku TV. There you go. Of course, you got the Roku TV app. Where we get your apps. Where on your Play Store, you'll catch our. Type in Sports of Chicago. You catch our show, Sean and Maya, the Smoke Fellas. I'm sure we're gonna get all other great football programming coming up this fall. So make sure you guys tune in for that, and catch us anytime, anywhere.
And we will provide.
All right. So enjoy the weekend, everybody. I know it's going to be hot in, some places, most of the country, including here in our region, the Midwest. So don't get into trouble, folks. Be good to each other and enjoy the sports. Of course, you got, baseball with the pennant races going on. I know the WNBA, I know we'll see, I guess when we'll be back, we'll see if the Sky make the playoffs, I guess. Got a big one against the Sparks on Wednesday, I think. So we'll see if they can hang on to the 8th spot. Also, and yeah, that's about it. And of course, college football as well. So yeah, whole lot of stuff coming up in the fall. So great time of year.
Yeah, so we'll see you next Wednesday, September the 6th, if I can get my calendar up here. Yep, September the 6th. That's on Wednesday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time for a special edition of Second City Support System. We won't be here on Monday, so we'll give you 2 shows almost back-to-back, Lakina, 2 out of 3 days next week. It's a grind, but it's football season. We're ready for it.
Yeah, well, of course, that's what we're doing it too. Of course, it's football. So yeah, football.
Exactly.
As our buddy Dave Watson from the Big Dave Watson from CHU would say, "Bow." Talking some ball coming up these next weeks. Coming up. So gonna be very exciting. Enjoy the holiday weekend, everybody. For Sid and Christine, I'm Lakeem. This is Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago, and we'll see you Wednesday.
Until then, stay cool and Dog Bears, holla.